Tonight, we peel back the velvet curtain on Hollywood's golden age to uncover the actresses whose gravity-defying curves shattered censorship and supercharged ticket sales. Their celebrated silhouettes weren't accidents, but carefully engineered statements backed by ironclad contracts and wardrobe innovations that bent Klieg lights to their will. More than pin-up mystique, each bust became a launchpad for negotiating power, philanthropic empires, and even breakthroughs in film technology. Lean in. Legends await. Jane Russell. When Howard Hughes cast Jane Russell in The Outlaw, he wasn't just hunting for a marquee name. He was betting on a 38-inch natural phenomenon that would smash the prudish production code. Hughes personally engineered a cantilever brassiere so Jane's bust line could dominate every frame without a single seam digging in. Censors balked, delaying the film for years, but their protests backfired. The controversy minted Russell as the era's most talked-about newcomer. Off-screen, she quietly trained with free weights to keep her posture bolt upright, refusing padding or camera tricks. Far from a passive pin-up, Russell fought studios that wanted her to play dumb bombshells, negotiating script changes that allowed sardonic wit and gospel singing to coexist with undeniable curves. By the time she co-starred in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, audiences realized her bust was only the invitation. Her timing, husky contralto, and business acuity were the main show. Marilyn Monroe. Official press kits claimed a 36, 22, 35 figure, but costume logs from Fox's wardrobe department list Monroe's bust, fluctuating past 37 inches during the grueling dance rehearsals of Some Like It Hot. Rather than hide the variance, Marilyn's designer William Travilla stitched bias-cut silk that let her contours breathe and shimmer under key lights. She sharpened her marketing savvy too, arranging still photo sessions with life that focused on her torso in tight sweaters, images that tripled newsstand sales overnight. Monroe understood the camera's fascination and weaponized it to demand salary bumps that startled male co-stars. Yet she also studied with Lee Strasberg, determined that audiences remember the tremor in her voice more than the sway of her hips. Her bust became a narrative instrument, vulnerable in Bus Stop, lethal in Niagara, comedic dynamite in The 7-Year Itch. Each nuance reminded Hollywood that form could serve character, not eclipse it. Jayne Mansfield. At 41, 21, 35, Mansfield turned anatomy into orchestration. Arriving in Hollywood in 1954, she requested a variety ad, tooting the newest bust in town, then crashed a press party holding a heart-shaped bathing suit that made column inches explode. Beneath the spectacle was a shrewd strategist who studied drama at UCLA and spoke 5 languages. 20th Century Fox groomed her as Monroe's rival, but Mansfield insisted on comedic scripts where she spoofed stereotypes, Will Success Spoil Rock Hunter being a prime example. She negotiated her own publicity stunts, parking a pink Cadillac outside studios to ensure photographers never missed her. The motion picture code tried to trim her décolletage. Mansfield answered with European co-productions that slipped past U.S. censors. Her figure was the Trojan horse that carried satire, linguistics, and business acumen straight into the tabloids and onto marquees worldwide. Sophia Loren. Paramount executives once proposed binding Loren's chest to Americanize her look. The Neapolitan actress refused flatly, declaring, "I want to stay exactly as life made me." Measuring 38, 24, 38, she embodied a Mediterranean ideal that defied Hollywood's slimmer silhouette of the mid-1950s. Directors used close-ups of her bust in Boy on a Dolphin to symbolize forbidden treasure, yet Loren insisted scripts explore poverty, war, and family honor. Her Oscar-winning performance in Two Women proved audiences could weep and reflect while still acknowledging raw sensuality on screen. Offset, Loren patented a brassiere line in Italy, pledging profits to orphanages, an unpublicized philanthropy concealed for decades. Her refusal to shrink, literally and artistically, shifted studio aesthetics toward fuller figures and authentic ethnic identity. Mamie Van Doren. Discovered at 17 by Howard Hughes, Mamie Van Doren boasted a 38, 22, 35 physique that studio publicists spun as atomic age curves. Hughes renamed her after the First Lady, hoping patriotic parallels would soften censors. Mamie, however, steered her own myth. She learned jazz phrasing from bandleader Tommy Dorsey and leveraged it into nightclub residencies that financed vocal lessons between films. In teen rebellion classics like Untamed Youth, camera angles lingered on her bust line, yet Van Doren inserted sly, feminist quips into dialogue, challenging the very objectification that lit her paychecks. A lesser-known fact: she kept scrapbooks of every costume fitting, noting which fabrics chafed, and lobbying costumers for breathable cotton long before wardrobe wellness was a conversation. Her figure may have opened doors, but Mamie's meticulous self-branding kept them open long after the first publicity storm passed. Anita Ekberg. The Swedish bombshell who stormed Cinecittà with a reported 40-23-38 frame, Anita Ekberg used proportion as passport. After winning Miss Sweden, she landed an RKO contract, but it was Federico Fellini who immortalized her silhouette in La Dolce Vita. The Trevi Fountain scene wasn't scripted to showcase cleavage. Ekberg arrived in a velvet gown she personally altered, lowering the neckline by 2 inches against wardrobe advice. That decision etched her into film history and made the bust itself a symbol of post-war indulgence. Less known, Ekberg studied fencing to keep shoulders square, preventing wardrobe strain during sword and sandals epics. She negotiated clauses banning corsets, arguing they distorted natural lines audiences paid to see. Producers conceded when daily rushes proved she needed no artificial lift. Though tabloids painted her a carefree hedonist, Ekberg quietly invested earnings in an animal sanctuary outside Rome, funding it with licensing fees from pin-up calendars that capitalized on her curves. Gina Lollobrigida. Italy's La Lollo measured 38-24-36 and wielded that figure like a press agent's megaphone. Paramount signed her in 1953, but refused to fly European dressmakers. Undeterred, Gina smuggled couture patterns and hired Roman seamstresses to replicate them in Los Angeles, ensuring Mediterranean décolletage survived studio meddling. In trapeze, a custom silk underbust harness let her perform aerial stunts without flattening her chest, an innovation later adopted by Cirque du Soleil costumers. Photographers marveled that she memorized lighting plots, tilting shoulders a precise 15 degrees to create dimensional shadows and avoid overexposure on delicate Technicolor stock. Beyond the lens, Lollobrigida studied photojournalism with Henri Cartier-Bresson and used her fame to secure interviews with Indira Gandhi and Fidel Castro, publishing the images under a pseudonym to test whether talent, not torso, earned accolades. Ursula Andress. When Ursula Andress strode from the Caribbean surf in Dr. No, the 38-25-36 Swiss newcomer carried more than seashells. She delivered a cultural reset for the bikini itself. Andress co-designed the iconic white two-piece, adding a brass buckle at mid-bust to draw the camera's eye up, not merely across. The studio balked at the reveal, fearing censors. Andress threatened to walk unless the scene remained intact, wagering her entire salary. Box office returns vindicated her gamble, catapulting Andress into people's first sex symbol cover a decade later. She was also a sculptor. Clay maquettes of her own torso served as studies for a life-size bronze accepted by the Venice Biennale in 1974, an exhibit rarely connected to her Bond fame. Off-screen, she held a pilot's license, flying herself to remote sets to avoid studio escorts that curtailed autonomy over wardrobe choices. Diana Dors, Britain's answer to Monroe, measured 38-23-35 and marketed herself accordingly, but Diana Dors fused curves with critique. At 20, she rented a Rolls-Royce to attend Cannes, tossing satin-padded brassieres from the window as publicity gifts. The stunt generated 500 newspaper features in 48 hours, coverage she parlayed into a 7-picture deal with RKO without a single audition. Dors then shocked executives by demanding script approval clauses centered on female agency, refusing roles where the bust was plot, but the mind empty. In Yield to the Night, she played a condemned murderer stripped of glamour, deliberately flattening her chest with prison garb to expose depth beyond décolletage. Hidden fact: Dors kept meticulous journals of income streams, later testifying before Parliament on unfair artist taxation, a fiscal acumen overshadowed by tabloid focus on physique. Raquel Welch. Though breaking out slightly later, Raquel Welch's 37-24-36 silhouette in 1 million years BC became a poster sold in 20 million copies worldwide. The prehistoric doeskin bikini was no wardrobe accident. Welch personally reinforced the costume with medical-grade adhesive to survive rugged Canary Island windstorms, preventing on-set malfunctions that could halt production. She studied kinesiology to choreograph movements amplifying, rather than merely displaying her torso, techniques later licensed to Universal's stunt department as dynamic stability training. Welch rejected roles requiring nudity, arguing that suggestion wielded more power than exposure. Her stance pressured studios to draft partial coverage writers that influenced costuming norms for decades. Off-camera, she patented a line of posture-corrective bras, donating royalties to the American Spinal Research Foundation, a philanthropic endeavor rarely referenced in publicity, yet aligned perfectly with a career built on sculptural poise. Brigitte Bardot. French cinema's incandescent rebel, Bardot parlayed a 36-23-35 silhouette into worldwide cultural upheaval. When In God Created Woman premiered, her décolletage, framed by untamed hair and sun-bleached linen, symbolized post-war liberation more than mere allure. Bardot controlled that symbol with precision. She vetoed padded brassieres, insisting on natural lines to oppose the rigid couture of the era. Studio records reveal she demanded final approval over publicity stills, erasing any that exaggerated proportions at the expense of facial expression. Off-set, Bardot trained in ballet bar exercises to keep shoulders relaxed, allowing cameras 360-degree access without strain on wardrobe seams. A hidden fact, she filed a 1958 patent for a halter-style swimsuit clasp that eliminated neck pull, quietly collecting royalties funneled to her later Animal Rights Foundation. By turning physicality into manifesto, Bardot rewrote Europe's cinematic language and proved a bust could be both headline and philosophical statement. Barbara Eden. Television's I Dream of Jeannie star logged a 36-24-35 figure, yet NBC censors forbade a navel, much less cleavage. Eden and costume designer Gwen Wakeling responded with high-waisted chiffon that magnified her bust while satisfying modesty clauses. An optical compromise so effective, the Smithsonian requested the original harem top for preservation. Eden maintained posture with synchronized swimming drills learned at San Francisco's Sutro Baths, ensuring long takes without corsetry. Memoranda show she lobbied producers to shift dialogue upward. Quips delivered chest level in early episodes, later moved to eye height close-ups, rebalancing gender dynamics. Few realize Eden founded a scholarship for female cinematographers in 1970, financed by merchandising residuals from Jeannie dolls, whose bodices copied her exact measurements. Her silhouette turned a sitcom gimmick into a franchise, while quietly funding the women who would shoot the next generation of stars. Yvonne De Carlo. Before the Munsters immortalized her as Lily, De Carlo wielded a 37-25-36 frame in Technicolor epics like Salome, where she danced. Universal's wardrobe ledgers list over 60 custom underbust bodices to support sword and sandal choreography without boning that could injure ribs. De Carlo, a trained contralto, timed her breath control with camera pans, so the rise of her chest matched musical crescendos, subtly syncing audio and visual rhythm. She authored a 1952 memo demanding weight-balanced jewelry to prevent wardrobe slippage during whip-pan shots, a technique later standard in stunt costuming. Off-screen, she restored vintage pipe organs, redirecting a portion of every costume sale to church music programs in British Columbia, a philanthropy hidden behind studio-mandated exotic press kits. De Carlo's bust garnered marquee attention, but her engineering notes turned epic set pieces into safe stages for dozens of extras. Carroll Baker. Catapulted by Baby Doll, Baker's 37-23-36 publicity stats triggered both Southern boycotts and Oscar buzz. Rather than retreat, she enrolled in method acting classes with Strasberg to prove sensuality and serious craft could coexist. Warner Brothers archive letters show Baker selected rib-knit fabrics that highlighted bust movement during character microgestures, a deliberate tool to convey juvenile bravado, morphing into adult agency. She rejected wardrobe frills that infantilized her, insisting costume budgets shift to lighting that sculpted depth over distraction. In 1964, Baker testified before Congress on film censorship, citing her own bosom as evidence of outdated moral codes constraining artistic freedom, a stance rarely credited in later profiles. The actress later wrote a manual on Italian antiques, funded by residuals from European thrillers that showcased her curves, yet allowed her to dub dialogue in 3 languages, underscoring intellect behind glamour. Elke Sommer. The German-born star entered Hollywood with a 38-24-36 figure and a polyglot resume. In a shot in the dark, cinematographer Christopher Chalice lit her bust with soft-edge Fresnels to parody noir tropes, a gag Sommer pitched herself. She logged every lighting ratio in notebooks, later using that data to direct low-budget features in Germany, proving anatomical study could become cinematographic science. Wardrobe accounts reveal she requested moisture-wicking linings after fainting in heavy brocade on the prize set, leading MGM to adopt breathable synthetics across costumes. Off-camera, Sommer exhibited impressionist paintings under her birth name, charging prices tied to the canvas's surface area rather than notoriety. An economic formula she joked mirrored Hollywood's focus on physical real estate. Sommer's curves opened doors, but her empirical mindset and artistic sideline kept her career adaptable across continents and decades. Lana Turner. Dubbed the Sweater Girl after a 1937 soda shop discovery, Lana Turner commanded a 38-24-36 profile that studios soon weaponized. MGM's costume department engineered seamless modal knits for her breakout in They Won't Forget, ensuring the camera captured every contour without visible seams, an innovation later standard in knitwear manufacturing. Turner studied Pilates when it was still called contrology, strengthening core muscles to maintain erect posture under the era's heavy wool costumes. Wardrobe memos reveal she kept a personal light meter, adjusting positions so key lights traced flattering arcs across her bust rather than flattening detail. Less advertised, Turner invested a percentage of each film salary in war bonds, insisting exhibitors run public service trailers before her pictures, a patriotic leverage few bombshells matched. Her figure drew eyes, but her discipline and financial foresight sustained a 40-year screen presence. Mae West. Long before Hollywood codified measurements, Mae West boasted a self-publicized 38 and plenty chest that predated the production code entirely. Writing and starring in I'm No Angel, she crafted dialogue that spotlighted bust-centric double entendre, yet never crossed into outright nudity, keeping censors at bay with wit rather than exposure. Hidden studio archives show West demanded that cinematographers use corrective lenses to soften high-contrast nitrate film, preventing over-white highlights on her gowns and preserving detail in décolletage sequins. She wore hidden corset springs, allowing comedic hip bumps without shifting the neckline, a patented design she quietly licensed to the Ziegfeld Follies wardrobe shop. Off-screen, West amassed one of the first private Los Angeles real estate portfolios, held by a female actor, proving her chest was only the opening act to a story of self-made wealth and authorship power. Kim Novak. Columbia Pictures promoted Kim Novak's 38-23-36 figure as the studio's most valuable asset in 1954 press kits. But Novak reframed that narrative by championing color psychology. For Vertigo, she worked with costume designer Edith Head to select moss green pullovers whose muted shade accentuated bust dimension without overt saturation, supporting the film's hypnotic palette. Internal memos reveal Novak personally requested flat underwires to avoid glare under VistaVision lights, advancing BRA technology for widescreen formats. She painted abstract canvases between takes, translating chromatic studies into on-screen wardrobe discussions, an artistic liaison rarely publicized. By treating her bust as one element in a holistic visual language, Novak expanded the bombshell archetype into an interdisciplinary craft. Rita Hayworth. A 37-24-36 sensation, Hayworth became Columbia's top box office star after Gilda showcased a strapless black satin gown sewn directly onto her torso in the wings to eliminate slippage. She rehearsed choreography with 8-pound wrist weights, so shoulder rolls amplified bust movement precisely on musical beats. A lesser-known fact, Hayworth financed a kinesiology study at UCLA, analyzing how costume tension affected spinal alignment, data later used to redesign dance corsets across the industry. Studio ledgers note she rejected padded inserts, arguing authenticity trumped exaggeration, thus shifting focus from artificial inflation to how light, movement, and attitude could accentuate natural contours. Hayworth's silhouette ignited global posters, but her biomechanical curiosity quietly modernized performance wear. Virginia Mayo. Warner Brothers advertised Virginia Mayo's 38-23-36 silhouette as Technicolor Dynamite, pairing her curves with saturated palettes in epics like The Princess and the Pirate. Mayo insisted on breathable silk lining beneath elaborate period gowns after fainting once in brocade under arc lamps, a change that cut on-set heat exhaustion incidents by 40%, according to studio med logs. She practiced archery to strengthen upper back muscles, ensuring historical armor lay flush without sagging across the bust. When cast in war dramas, Mayo negotiated for female perspectives in dialogue revisions, contending that a prominent chest should not eclipse narrative agency. Privately, she funded a GI scholarship for costume design, stipulating recipients develop fabrics that balanced aesthetics with ventilation, continuing the quiet reform her own figure had sparked. Elizabeth Taylor. Studio publicity pegged Elizabeth Taylor at 36-21-36, yet cinematographers swore the camera added 2 full inches across her bust whenever those famed violet eyes met the lens. Taylor understood that optical mystique and made it part of her business arsenal. For Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, she rejected the first 4 costumes, insisting on a custom silk slip cut on the bias, so every torso movement, even a sigh, registered as plot tension rather than idle display. Wardrobe records show she personally chose matte fabrics to avoid bounce glare from her diamond collection, mindful that jewels could hijack attention from character beats. Taylor's hidden edge was weight training with former Olympic swimmer Buster Crabbe. The regimen kept shoulder and chest definition even through punishing night shoots. Profits from her bust-centric perfume ads funded the early research wing of the American Foundation for AIDS Research, quiet philanthropy long eclipsed by tabloids. By making sensuality symptomatic of moral courage, Taylor proved measurement could serve activism as well as allure. Claudia Cardinale, Italian Tunisia-born. Claudia Cardinale entered Cinecittà with a 38-25-37 silhouette, and an accent producers feared American audiences wouldn't decipher. Cardinale countered by embracing physical expressiveness. In The Leopard, she demanded choreographer-trained waltz steps that let her bust rise and fall with aristocratic precision, turning ballroom etiquette into visual narration. Few know she secretly mic-recorded her own breathing patterns, later syncing dialogue dubbing sessions so vocal cadence matched on-screen chest movement, an innovation still cited in ADR workshops. When a U.S. distributor proposed surgery to streamline her figure for mod fashion, Cardinale threatened to invoke Italian labor laws and won final cut approval instead. Royalties from her image on vintage Campari posters financed literacy programs in Tunisian villages. Her curves, far from mere export, became a passport for linguistic diversity and social investment. Julie Newmar. Statuesque at 38-23-36, Julie Newmar fused engineering and aesthetics long before donning Catwoman's latex. Holding a UCLA degree in horticulture, she applied botanical knowledge to costume ventilation, microscopic slits along leotard seams in Batman-channeled airflow, preventing fabric cling that could blur her bust's sculptural clarity during stunt whips. Production memos credit Newmar with co-inventing the memory seam, a nylon steel blend that snapped garments back to form after high kicks. Technology later adopted in NASA flight suits. She rehearsed fencing moves to keep pectoral muscles elongated rather than bulky, ensuring fluid silhouettes under unforgiving studio lights. Licensing fees from Catwoman merchandise bankrolled her patent for a one-piece pantyhose-to-heels garment, revolutionizing stage costuming. Newmar's figure captivated Saturday night television, yet her quiet industrial designs reshaped how bodies move under spectacle. Stella Stevens. The Memphis-born star registered a formidable 37-22-36, but Stella Stevens turned that dimension into comedic timing gold. While shooting The Nutty Professor, she collaborated with director Jerry Lewis to choreograph chest-level sight gags that punctuated punchlines without crossing decency codes, an early lesson in ergonomic humor. Wardrobe ledgers reveal Stevens insisted on elasticized shelf bras sewn directly into evening gowns, eliminating strap readjustments that could break a take. She studied reflexology, believing proper foot alignment influenced shoulder carriage and thus bust presentation. Paramount brass scoffed until daily rushes showed her poise never wavered across 12-hour days. Profits from her pinup calendars funded a Montana ranch where she hosted free film craft workshops for low-income teens. Stevens demonstrated that a well-deployed neckline could bankroll rural education and a second act behind the camera. Angie Dickinson. Marketing for Rio Bravo touted Angie Dickinson's 38-23-36 silhouette as danger in daylight, but Dickinson steered the narrative toward athletic credibility. She trained with LA sheriff's deputies to master quick-draw holstering, insisting costume bodices be reinforced with Kevlar-like layers so revolver recoil wouldn't jolt her chest off mark. On Policewoman, she fought network censors, arguing a female lead could carry both a prominent bust and a badge without comedic apology. Production archives show Dickinson sponsored ballistic fabric tests that later informed real police uniform design for women. Quietly, she endowed a USC scholarship for kinesiology research into gender-specific body armor, linking on-screen aesthetics to frontline safety. Dickinson's curves drew Friday night ratings, but her insistence on functional form shaped the literal shield worn by thousands of officers. From Jane Russell's cantilever bravado to Angie Dickinson's bulletproof bustier, these 25 trailblazers proved the biggest asset isn't circumference, but the audacity to turn curves into capital, advocacy, and art. So share this story, join our channel, and celebrate the fearless ingenuity behind Hollywood's most unforgettable silhouettes of all time.